And actually, to my surprise, because John agreed that it sounds better over his beloved PS Audio amps, so much so that he has decided to sell his PS Audio M700s and purchase a Tonewinner AD-1PA for himself. Welcome to the channel, everyone. Barrett here with Spec of Tech. Today we're talking about a special amplifier. The Tonewinner AD-1PA is a 2-channel beast that sits on the budget side of high-end hi-fi, but it has a couple tricks up its sleeve that sets it apart from the others. So these tricks are very handy for everyone, but especially handy for reviewers and those that like to compare speakers and cables. I also had my friend John Herdzuk come down and we compared a couple of his PS Audio M700 monoblock amps. They're about 400 more than the Tonewinner for a pair of them because they are monoblocks. We also did a comparison with the Tonewinner versus a New Prime AMG STA amplifier, so I'll give you some of our thoughts on those comparisons in this video as well. So we're going to get into all that, plus I will give you my impressions on who I think this amplifier is for in today's review of the Tonewinner AD-1PA Beast of an Amplifier. And we are going to get right into this video today, but first, a special thank you to Amir at Summit Hi-Fi, which is where I purchased these amplifiers. So Summit Hi-Fi is one of the best hi-fi businesses that I've ever dealt with. Links are down in the description below if you want to check them out. Alright, so we did cover some of the basic specs in the unboxing and first impressions video. If you want to see that, I've linked that in the top right hand corner of this one, but let's recap some of them really quickly in this video. The AD-1PA is a large 92-pound 2-channel amp with 100 watts per channel into 8 ohms of pure Class A power, or it can be switched into Class AB power for 300 watts per channel into 8 ohms with 2 channels driven, or up to 500 watts per channel into 4 ohms with 1 channel driven. So needless to say, it does have plenty of power. As a matter of fact, 100 watts of pure Class A power is a lot. Most Class A amps have much less than that, and most of them even cost much more than what this amplifier costs. To help produce that power though, you have a truly monstrous 1200 watt toroidal transformer with separate windings for each channel and 180,000 UF worth of capacitors. And the price for all of that at the time of this recording is $2,875 US, but you are getting a lot of amplifier for that price. For current pricing though, check the links down in the description below. Let's start things off with the build quality. There really isn't any other way to put it. This is probably the best built amplifier that I've ever seen. It's ridiculously robust. I know that weight isn't the only deciding factor when it comes to deciding quality, but at 92 pounds, you can't deny they used a lot of material to build it, and that material is metal. And of course, a good portion of that 92 pounds is undoubtedly from the 1200 watt toroidal transformer that's inside. This amp probably feels better built than most cars, from the solid metal faceplate to the massive metal heat sinks on either side. Even at its price point, it really does portray a top tier quality built amplifier. And then have a look on the inside and the story is the same. Plain and simple, it is just well built. To be honest, you would be really hard pressed to fault the build of this amplifier. And in my opinion, it also has a top tier look. No, there are no flashy gimmicks that scream look at me, but what it does have is a classy simplicity that just plain looks good. But if I did have to make one nitpick, it would be nice to have a giant transformer and exceptional build quality like this, but at a much lighter weight. That is clearly wishful thinking, but when it comes to this amplifier, you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you want top tier build and sound quality with a linear power supply like this 1200 watt toroidal transformer, that is just what it takes to make it happen, so it's going to be heavy. But before we get into that top tier sound quality and my thoughts on this amp versus the PS Audio M700 monoblocks, I had mentioned that these amps have some tricks up their sleeve. The first trick is that these amplifiers can be used in pure Class A power mode, pure Class AB power mode, or you can have them set to automatically switch from A to AB if more than 100 watts is needed. And to make those changes, there are 3 indicator lights and a button to toggle through those modes. The second trick is something that is incredibly useful for those who like to compare speakers or cables, and that is that they have 2 different sets of binding posts on the back for each channel, and you can switch between them with the press of a button. So with that feature, I can have 2 different sets of speakers set up and quickly switch between them with the press of a button. This is very helpful because it has been proven that our audio memory is not nearly as good as our visual or touch memory, so it's difficult to make meaningful comparisons with sound differences if you can't quickly switch between the source of the sound. And this little trick also makes it easier to do blind A/B comparisons. All I need is to set up 2 pairs of speakers and have someone press the button and switch between them without me knowing which they are switching to. In my opinion, this makes the AD-1PA perfect for any audio reviewer or anyone that just loves to compare speakers or even cables. And in addition to that, you can also use those separate binding posts to bi-wire your speakers because they can also both be active simultaneously. Alright, now let's talk about that sound quality. But real quick before we do, if you like videos like this, you might as well subscribe. Tick the bell icon if you do, and please take just one short second to hit that like button. I always do appreciate it. And please consider supporting the channel so I can keep bringing you honest reviews on products that are bought and paid for by me, like this one right here. There are a few ways to do that. There is a link to my Patreon down in the description below. You can buy me a cup of coffee by clicking the thanks button below this video, or you can even join the channel by clicking the join button, which is right below this video as well. So first things first when it comes to the sound, I've had this amplifier paired with the Polk R200 bookshelves, as well as my Sonus Faber Sonetto 8 towers, and I believe this amplifier to be neutral. It does not color the sound like some other amplifiers may do. So just recently I had my buddy John down to do a little comparison between his PS Audio M700 monoblock amps and the Tonewinner AD-1PA. While we were doing that comparison, I thought it would be fun to see if we can hear the difference between Class A and AB. So I had John change between the classes while I had my hat pulled over my eyes, and then I did the same for John. Now we honestly had no idea which mode we were listening to, but we both did hear differences. So a quick way to sum it up is that in Class A mode, the treble was a little smoother and not as sharp around the edges, and the bass sounded slightly fuller. So we both could hear the difference, and we both preferred Class A mode, but take that for what you will. That being said, at louder volumes, we both preferred Class AB mode. It just seemed to have a little bit better dynamics, but that was at levels that most people would not listen at for long periods of time. It was uncomfortably loud. I will be getting to our thoughts on the PS Audio versus the Tonewinner in just a minute, but first I'll do my best to sum up the sound of the Tonewinner AD-1PA. I do have to admit, guys, that this is the best sounding amplifier that I've owned. Assuming you are feeding this amplifier a good quality signal, the amplifier will reward you with incredibly dynamic, incredibly clear, and powerful sound. And every one of those sounds is exactly where it should be, and the separation of those sounds really is astounding. For instance, when listening to Homesick by Dua Lipa, which is a song both John and I are familiar with, the song starts off with piano, and then Dua Lipa comes in with her very airy vocals. With a lesser amplifier, the piano seems to be somewhat muddied up when her voice comes in, but with the Tonewinner AD-1PA, the piano stays right where it should be and just as clear as it was before her voice came in. The Tonewinner seems to just provide cleaner separation, which was noticeable in this song by both John and I. That remains true whether it's highs, mid-range, or bass. The Tonewinner just delivers. Alright, so now let's get down to some of the comparisons between the amplifiers. So John brought down his PS Audio M700 monoblock amplifiers, which are a Class A input stage mated to a Class D output stage, putting out 700 watts into 4 ohms. This is very similar to the new Prime AMG STA technology. I do own that amplifier as well, but the PS Audio amps are more powerful. John and I listened to many different songs and switched back and forth between the PS Audio amps and the Tonewinner AD-1 more times than I can count, to a point that I got tired of switching cables, to be honest. We both chose songs that we were both familiar with, and in the end, we both had very similar thoughts. We both agreed that there were some slight sonic differences between the two different amps. We agreed that the PS Audio treble was a little bit more soft around the edges. Details were still there, just not quite as detailed around the edges, so to speak. The M700s and the AD-1PA both had spectacular bass, and we didn't hear any sonic differences between the mid-range. So when it comes to the sonics themselves, or the sound signature themselves, because there is some slight differences, obviously it would depend on your preference, which one you would prefer, but there was not a particular amplifier that was clearly above the other one in that regard. Where we heard the biggest difference, or where the game changer was for both of us, was in the instrument and sound separation. The Tonewinner just seemed to be cleaner, and sounds were just slightly more discernible. Again, I'll take us back to the song Homesick by Dua Lipa. When the piano is playing, the amps sound very similar, but then when Dua Lipa starts singing, the clarity in the piano seemed to drop off a bit with the PS Audio amplifiers, but with the Tonewinner, the clarity and separation between the two sounds was just plain better. This made us actually a little bit curious, so we hooked up my new Prime AMG STA stereo amplifier that has a similar design to the PSA audio amplifier. It's a Class A module paired with a Class D module. We heard the exact same thing when switching back and forth. Now, I don't want you guys to get me wrong. Both the PS Audio and the new Prime amplifiers are fantastic amplifiers, and they both sound fantastic. What I'm talking about here isn't to put down the other two amplifiers, only to highlight why the Tonewinner AD-1PA is the best sounding amplifier that John and I have ever heard. And actually, to my surprise, because John agreed that it sounds better over his beloved PS Audio amps, so much so that he has decided to sell his PS Audio M700s and purchase a Tonewinner AD-1PA for himself. We both feel that the AD-1PA would definitely compete with the build quality of much more expensive amplifiers, even in the realm of $10,000, but we also believe it would get you similar, if not equal sound. But let's move on to my final thoughts and who I think this amplifier is for. John and I both fell in love with this amplifier. There's just no other way to put it. But of course, there are a couple drawbacks to this type of topology. It isn't a fault of the AD-1PA, but it is just the reality of the technology. The first of the drawbacks is, of course, the weight. This amp is 92 pounds, and it's not going to work in every situation. That's why I have them on the floor, powering my front speakers. The other drawback is, of course, heat. In Class A mode, they will heat up. If you have them in a rack or a cabinet, you will want fans to help dissipate the heat, but this is true for pretty much any Class A amplifier. In Class AB mode, they don't get as hot, but they still do get warm, so either have them open or free air like I do, or if you do have them in a rack or cabinet of any kind, make sure to make use of some cooling fans. And again, guys, those two things are not a fault of the AD-1PA in particular. It's just a fault of the topology. That type of topology and amplifier just have those, I guess if you want to call them, issues. But it's known these types of amplifiers will get warm, and these types of amplifiers, especially with this type of linear power supply, are going to be heavy. It is an incredible value in my opinion, especially when compared to other Class A amplifiers that cost more and still can't compete with the power output or the features of the AD-1PA. This amplifier is an easy recommendation for any reviewer looking for an easy way to switch between speakers for reviews, and just as easy to recommend to anyone looking for astounding sound quality for a very affordable price. Links are down in the description if you'd like to check out the Tonewinner AD-1PA. Remember to subscribe. I do have some bookshelf speaker comparisons coming between the Polk R200s, the Focal Aria 906, the SVS Ultra Bookshelf, the Klipsch RP600M Mark IIs, the Paradigm 40Bs, as well as the Sonetto 2s. I also have some content coming on the Sonetto 8 Towers, the Sonetto C2 Center, and the Sonetto wall speakers. Subscribe and tick the bell icon if you want to see those comparisons, and please take just one little old second to hit that like button. I always do appreciate it. Remember to enjoy your systems. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.